You ever see a room full of people freeze because the truth just crashed through the door like a wrecking ball? That's the moment I want you to picture, because that was me, Captain Zara Washington, standing in the middle of Millfield International, blood on my lip, the whole airport terminal so quiet you could hear the gossip in people's heads. A minute ago, Maxwell Thornton, Skyway's golden boy captain, had slapped me in front of a plane full of passengers, assuming I was just another black woman he could push around. He didn't know hell. Nobody in that building knew I was Millfield's first black female chief of police, or that I was running a federal investigation into airline discrimination that was about to shake their entire little empire to its core. You ever watch a man's world unravel in a second? Thornton's face turned sheet white when I pulled out my badge me hand, shaking, but my voice steady, revealing the real reason I was there. It wasn't just about his slap, or even about me. This was about every person who'd been told to move to the back, to keep quiet, to disappear because they didn't fit the picture. You know what I mean? Yeah, that happened. But let me back up a sec, because this story isn't just about a slap or a badge. 12 hours before that terminal went silent, I was standing in my bathroom, peeling off my uniform, staring at my own tired eyes in the mirror. 3 months into my tenure, already dodging sideways glances, suggestions that maybe a different officer, someone with more experience, code for someone white, should handle sensitive matters. But when you're the first anything, sometimes you gotta see things for yourself. So I booked a first-class ticket on Skyway's most lucrative route where complaints clustered and evidence vanished. I wore a simple blue dress, tucked my badge deep in my blazer, and promised myself I'd let the facts, not my fury, lead. Yeah, right? I made it through check-in, watching a blonde attendant drop her smile as soon as she saw me, grilling my ID way longer than any other passengers. At security, despite my pre-check, I got the random screening. 3 other black passengers, same story. White travelers. They floated through like ghosts. I made mental notes, felt my patience fray. At the gate, I saw Thornton for the first time laughing with staff, ignoring an elderly black woman asking about boarding. When she finally touched his sleeve, he looked at her like she was a bug, told her to wait her turn. Then a white couple walked up, and suddenly he was all charm and helpfulness. I wanted to scream, but this was about the bigger picture, so I watched. Boarding was more of the same. White folks welcomed with open arms. Anyone who looked like me got curt nods and extra questions. On the plane, I barely settled into my seat before a flight attendant showed up. "Ma'am, we need this seat for another passenger. Could you move to coach?" There were 2 empty first-class seats right there. "It's a balance issue," she said. "Captain's orders." Then a man in a $1,000 suit showed up behind her. "Is my seat ready?" he asked, not even looking at me. I held my ground. "I paid for this seat. I'm not moving." The flight attendant's smile vanished. "I'll get the captain." Thornton stormed down the aisle like he owned the sky. "When flight crew gives instructions, they're not suggestions," he barked. "Move, or we make an emergency landing and have you removed." People had their phones out recording. I knew the smart move was to let it go, but sometimes you have to stand your ground, especially when every inch is being taken from you. "I believe that would be discriminatory, Captain." "I'm not moving." Thornton turned red. "You people always make everything about race," he spat. "This is about safety and my authority." Passengers shifted uncomfortably. The businessman in the suit tried to de-escalate, but Thornton was on a power trip. "Last chance," he snapped. I looked him dead in the eye. "Your demand is unlawful. I'm staying right here." What happened next? Well, depending on who you ask, the story changes. But the video Sofia Rivera, a nurse in the back row, recorded doesn't lie. Thornton's hand lashed out, hard enough to split my lip, to stop conversation, to freeze the air. Blood trickled down my chin. I dabbed it with a napkin, heart pounding. Then I reached into my blazer, pulled out my badge. "Captain Maxwell Thornton, I am Chief Zara Washington of the Millfield Police Department. You're under arrest for assault and battery, and for the record, I'm also leading the federal investigation into discrimination at Skyway Airlines." That's when everything shifted. The plane made an emergency landing, not to remove my butt, to take Thornton into custody. Airport security and my own backup officers met us at the terminal, And Thornton, still trying to talk his way out, kept repeating, "This is a misunderstanding." I didn't know who she was, as if that excused everything. But you know how these stories got powerful people move fast to protect their own. By the time I got to the station, the mayor was on the phone. "Handle this quietly, chief. Skyway employs thousands. Think about the bigger picture." My lips still bleeding, I told him I wasn't going to sweep this under the rug. Before I could process the chaos, Skyway CEO, Sherman Whitfield, called me in. His office looked out over the whole city like he owned it. "Let's resolve this quietly," he said, sliding a fat settlement folder across the table, offering money for silence and an NDA to bury the day. I didn't touch it. I'm here as chief of police, not a victim looking for a payout. His smile faded. The photos on his wall golfing with the mayor, posing with city officials, said more than he did. "Careful, chief. Investigations have a way of backfiring." The warning wasn't subtle. When I left, a black SUV tailed me. By the time I got back to headquarters, Internal Affairs was waiting with doctored security footage, copy-paste witness statements painting me as the aggressor, and a suspension notice signed by my own deputy chief. I was stripped of my badge and escorted out, eyes burning into my back, the room thick with betrayal. I'd been chief for 3 months. In the end, no one stood up for a minute yet. You ever have your whole world pulled out from under you, only to realize the hole you fell in it goes much deeper? Alone, betrayed, and now physically threatened, Skyway's head of security cornered me on a deserted road, telling me to drop the case or else. "You're not a cop right now," he said. "Think about it." But here's the thing, every intimidation tactic just made me angrier, more determined. I ran to the one person in this city I trusted, Judge Eleanor Harrison, retired but still sharper than anyone in the game. She'd been the first black female judge in the state, and she'd seen this play out before. Together, with the help of Marcus Chin, a civil rights lawyer who never lost a righteous fight, and a small crew of officers willing to risk their careers, we built a countercase. We gathered evidence, tracked down whistleblowers, and uncovered the real operation. Skyway wasn't just discriminating. They were feeding a for-profit prison pipeline, targeting minority passengers for petty arrests that sent them to Pinnacle Corrections, whose board included half the city's elite. It went all the way to the mayor, the police commission, and yes, even my own department. Every attempt to expose the truth was met with smears, doctored clips of old arrests, ex-boyfriends telling stories to the news, protesters outside my house. They wanted to make me a pariah, but all they did was convince the people who mattered me allies, those who'd been silenced before, that the fight was bigger than any one of us. Then they crossed the line. My sister Aisha, community nurse, not a troublemaker, vanished. "You should have taken the settlement," a voice said on the phone, distorted and cold. "Drop the investigation or your sister disappears for good." That's when it stopped being a battle for my job or my reputation. It was a war for my family, my city, my conscience. With help from Judge Harrison and Rebecca Winters, a national journalist, we rescued Aisha and went public. We coordinated the release of every scrap of evidence we'd gathered: Sophia's unedited video of Thornton's assault, internal memos, recordings from Thornton's wife, who'd suffered years of his abuse, and finally turned over proof of the entire operation. Skyway, Pinnacle, the mayor's office, they all got dragged into the light. Of course, when you threaten the system, it hits back hard. Communications blackouts, legal threats, even federal agents pulled off the case. But we had our own network, our own plan, and we moved faster than they could shut us down. We exposed how the city traded justice for profit, how powerful people got rich off discrimination, how a slap on a plane was just the tip of a very ugly iceberg. The fallout was immediate. The city erupted, the story went national, federal agents arrived. Thornton, Whitfield, and the mayor were all arrested, caught on their own words, their own signatures. But even then, they tried to flip the script, staging a final press conference to accuse me of fabricating everything. That when I walked into City Hall, face still bruised, with cameras rolling and body cam live streaming, interrupting their lies with receipts. They folded fast. My team served legal documents, played recordings, displayed messages, and the crowd outside broke into applause as agents led them away in cuffs. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't a movie ending. The system that allowed all this was built to last. But cracks are showing. Officers who stayed silent are stepping up. Whistleblowers are coming out of hiding. Community leaders are demanding a seat at the table. For the first time, people see the rot that runs through the roots and know it can be dug up. As for me, I got reinstated, but that's not what matters. What matters is the message. You can't silence the truth forever. When one woman stands up, others stand with her. You want a neat ending, but the reality is the work's just beginning. We exposed one scheme, but the fight to rebuild trust, to purge corruption, to make this city live up to its promises, that's a war fought every day. So here's what I want to know. If you were in my shoes, would you have taken the settlement, let it all slide to save your own peace? Or would you have stood your ground, even when the whole world seemed set against you? Comment below. Number 1, if you fight for justice. Number 2, if you walk away and protect your own. And if this story moved you, if you believe truth matters, even when it costs everything, share your thoughts. Subscribe, join the conversation. Because the only thing more powerful than the system trying to silence us is the people who refuse to be silent.